I'm Paul Pugliese, and we're here at the Nalley farm on February 7th, 2020 to interview Mr. Jack Nalley. I was approached by the Etowah Valley Historical Society about preserving some of the oral history of agriculture and farming here in Bartow County. So today's interview is one that we hopefully will be one of several opportunities to capture this important part of Bartow's history. So Jack, tell us a little bit about your background as far as when you were born and where were you raised?
I was born in 1943 and raised right here. My granddad's been right here on the same farm. His granddad before him. So we've been here on the same farm before the Civil War. I don't know how far back before that.
So quite a few generations here. Okay, and where did you go to school?
Pine Log.
Pine Log, okay.
They had the high school at Pine Log when we came along, and 1 year after me they closed the Pine Log school down. There wasn't enough people in the county area.
Okay. And what did you do after graduation?
Went straight in the Army for 6 months. So just straight from school, went 6 months in the Army.
Okay.
And through the Army National Guard, come back and went to work. I was still 17 years old. I got out of school early.
Yeah.
Started to work for a carpet mill in Whites when I was still 17.
Okay.
With 6 months done, so I stayed with them. I've been on the farm all my life. We started off raising a dairy farm, got up 4 o'clock every morning, 7 days a week. No matter what you want to do, you milk them cows 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. So that was my start. I still helped Daddy and Mother all the time while I was working at a carpet mill. So.
Yeah.
But I made 12 years at the carpet mill in the meantime.
Okay.
So
your father was in the dairy business, and how far back did that go?
he went back to, they was milking cows before they got power up here.
Okay.
They had a cream separator that they sold the cream. They'd carry it to town once a week, the cream.
Yeah.
But the raw milk, I don't know what, they just give it to the neighbors or sold it to them or what, the raw milk. But they'd have to keep the milk in a spring down through here. And so then somewhere Mr. Bradshaw in Cartersville asked them about bringing their raw milk to Cartersville. His dad told him, he said, there's no way you can drive to Cartersville every day. And my dad said, well, told him, he said, well, let's see if we can. But anyway, then he got about 20 dairies started down the road. All of them had small dairies at that time.
Right.
But he'd pick up their milk and carry it on 10-gallon cans on an old flatbed truck to Cartersville then. So that was the starting of us in the dairy business. But anyway, after they got electricity, we got to milking, and we had the first registered Holstein herd that was in Georgia at that time. We didn't have many, but we had the first. We'd show cattle at the fair every year, but you had to take 2 for each class. If you didn't, you'd just get second place money. So nobody was in competition, but we'd go to the Cartersville, Rome, Atlanta. Atlanta had some competition more at that time. Then we'd put them on a train and carry them to Memphis, Tennessee, and show cattle up through there. But we'd always try to have 2 for each class where you'd get first and second place money.
Okay. And that was with the FFA that you were involved with?
Well, I don't know, did the FFA, we was in the FFA or whatever, but it was just showing cattle all I knew at that time.
Okay. So for the local fair, you were showing cattle? And,
local fair, and Southeastern, we'd stay down there, whatever, 10 days or whatever to Southeastern fair, whatever. You spend all, you would never have no money when you got done. You'd spend it all back out.
Right.
The kids on the midway and all. But
okay. All right.
You wouldn't have no money when you got through, but you'd get to see a little.
Yeah, good experience, yeah. So tell us a little bit about your father and his occupation. Did he do anything else besides the dairy business? Or?
Worked in a coal mine when he went to Alabama and worked in a coal mine when he was just a kid. He run off from home. But then he got over there and he couldn't go to work on account he was underage. So then he still had to get his daddy, and his daddy signed for him to work in the coal mine over through there. So that lasted 3 or 4 years. But anyway, then he's back home and never had a public job after that. I reckon he worked at this farm all his life.
Okay. And he had some brothers?
Had 9 brothers, 1 sister.
Wow, okay. So yeah, there's quite a few folks in this area that are cousins, I guess.
Yeah, that was a good part about growing up here. My mother and dad both was out of big families, and just growing up, and you could stop up and down the road and see some of your aunts and uncles and your cousins all the time. But I really enjoyed growing up with all of my kinfolks here.
Okay. Were any of them have big personalities that you'd like to talk about?
My dad, I don't know how. My dad was a comedian. He enjoyed life. He lived to be a little over 100. But if anybody ever enjoyed their life, and for everybody, they want probably be anybody around here that might remember him, but his name was Bud Nalley. But he was quite a figure in this community as far as always had a tale to tell and never run out. And my postmaster used to be here. He said that he was the only man in the world who could come in and read the paper and everything was funny about it. So anyway, but he was a character.
Yeah. Okay. So the dairy business changed quite a lot over the years. Tell us about kind of what happened there as far as the transition.
First off, we just about starved out. That's what happened to us in the dairy business. All the small dairies just couldn't make it. If you wasn't big enough where you could have silage and all back at the time we got out, you just couldn't hardly make it. And they put Carter come along with a grain embargo. When he put that on, well, feed prices just about double all at once. And till then, or whatever, we'd been selling milk for $5 a hundred. You sign a contract for 5 years at a time, sell your milk for $5 a hundred, and everybody was going broke. The feed prices went up, and all we were doing was paying a feed bill. So we came from that, or whatever the company we were selling for, to anyway. They just come along and broke a contract themselves to give us a little money to try to keep everybody in. But that was my story. In '74, whatever. The job come open at the tax office. I left the carpet mill. I waited 12 years at the carpet mill and was lucky enough that I had good jobs all the time. Got a plant superintendent at Dan River Carpets. But what am I trying to say here now about anyway, a fellow told me one day, he said, "You think you got a good job down here, don't you?" I don't know how I answered him about that, but he said, "If you wasn't making these folks money, you wouldn't be here," and said anybody making or be working for themselves. So that was about September that year. And I told my wife or whatever, I said, "If we stay here, we'll have a house and a car when we retire." And I knew there wasn't enough money on the farm to live on. But anyway, we quit and moved in a house up on the farm. It didn't have no water, no bathroom in it, and that's how we got started around through here with our farming.
Yeah. So how'd you meet your wife?
School. She said the 4th grade.
In the 4th grade, okay.
She said I gave her a handkerchief and it had red roses on it and some pennies wrapped up in it, and that meant I loved her, so I had her from the 4th grade on.
Wow, that's good, that's good. So tell us a little bit about your career as a tax commissioner here in Bartow County.
It was just a great job. It was just, nobody couldn't, when I got into it, my dad told me, I told him I was going to run. He probably had some big bad words, I don't know what. But anyway, I remember him telling me I didn't have a chance, that I didn't know enough people. And I told him, well, I wouldn't know till I tried. Yeah. So they was 8 in the race when I got in. And luckily, we got in a runoff, and then I got elected and got to stay there 31 years.
Wow.
I would love to still been there, but my wife said it's time me to come home and live my dream on this farm. She'd been living all these years.
Yeah. So you got to work under 2 different commissioners, is that right?
3.
3, okay.
Olin
Tatum.
Frank Moore.
And Clarence
Brown.
Yep. Okay, very good.
But it was a great job. It was just, nobody couldn't have had a better job than to been at the tax office.
Yeah, very good. Well, we appreciate you serving the county over all those years.
It was great.
Tell us about some of the associations you've been involved with over the years. One that comes to mind would be Farm Bureau, of course. And what's been your involvement with those types of associations?
The Farm Bureau, just my dad was in with the thing when they helped start the Farm Bureau or whatever. But anyway, Farm Bureau has just been a good organization for helping anything to do with agriculture. It's just been a great thing. And Gold Kiss come along. At that time when we got started with Gold Kiss, I was raised always with a Gold Kiss store in town. Well, there's a co-op. And we always thought we traded with them. Sometimes we'd pay them more than we could buy it somewhere else. But we always felt like we was a part of something when we had our co-op. So that's where we bought all of our supplies, and all that we used for the farm was from our co-op store.
Right. And let's see, you got the Farm Family of the Year award with Farm Bureau.
In 1988, I think it was, or whatever, we got the Farm Family of the Year, which my mother just passed away a couple of weeks before that, and we always wished that she could have been here just to saw us, to get that. But it was a great award. We were really proud of it, or whatever.
Yep. Well, that's a very highly regarded award, and your peers here in Bartow County are the ones that picked you. The other farmers thought very highly of you.
There used to be a lot of farmers. It's getting where now, as you know, whatever, the farmers are just very few in Bartow County now. It's a number, but back when I even got in the tax office in '74, Bartow County was just a complete rural community. We knew about everybody, and through my 31 years I stayed there, I say we went through 3 stages there. When I first got in there, I knew everybody and everybody knew me. You could tell me a name and I'd tell you what part of the county, that you were in. But that was the first stage. The second stage we went through, that people knew me and I didn't know them. And the last stage we went in was nobody knew nobody. I could walk by the back of the office and nobody wouldn't even recognize me then at that time. But we went from about a 28,000 population to over 100,000 in this time.
So probably one of the biggest changes, I guess, that affected your farm was the interstate coming through this area and the growth that occurred around that. Tell us a little bit how that affected farming operations.
What happened with the interstate coming through here, all the land around us, it never rolled over $300 to $400 an hour, $250 or whatever. There's a farm right down below us, it sold for $250. But when they started talking about Interstate 75 coming through here, nobody knew exactly then where it was going. So all these investors in here out of Atlanta, they bought up every farm around through here, and the farmers started getting $500 an acre. And they all thought that was the most money they'd ever seen. Money just wasn't like it is today or whatever. It's hard to get a hold of. We'd pick cotton every day and make $1.50 or $2 or something other, picking cotton for somebody else, to try to make a little money. And we was proud to get that $1.50 or $2. Paid 2 cents a hundred, and you didn't get much from 100, 125 something for most of us.
So you did pick some cotton then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My wife and I, she was raised in a cotton patch up the road or whatever, but anyway, we had to have a race to see which one could outpick the other one after we got married. She claimed she was pregnant reason she didn't win. But anyway, the man weighed our cotton up that day that we'd both worked jobs. And we went to the cotton field when we got in, and he said he weighed the first one, I'll never forget, but he said it weighed 22 pounds. And then he said he weighed the other one, and it weighed 22 pounds. He said he went back and be sure he had them both, and they both weighed exactly 22 pounds after we got out there, and as hard as we could work that evening when we got home to get cotton. But anyway, she never did prove she could beat me picking cotton, but we was raised picking cotton.
There used to be several cotton gins that were active in Bartow County. Which one did y'all?
We used the one at Pine Log.
Pine Log, okay.
But we mostly, in my time, we picked for somebody else or whatever. We didn't have cotton in my time.
Right, okay. Well, tell us a little bit about the decision to go from dairy to poultry in your farming operation.
That was the dairy, we just about starved out of the dairy business. And the poultry business, we built 2 houses in '77, and that was by far the best move that's ever been made for this farm or whatever. It's just a lot more. Chickens was easier. It still was work back in those days. There wasn't all this computer like we've got today. You had to stay out there and worry about the heat all the time and the power going off. But anyway, that was just a good decision to go to the chicken business. It's been great all the years. We've been raising chickens now for 43 years.
Were there a lot of folks getting into the poultry business around that same time frame? Or were you
no, there wasn't a lot. It was still pretty small when we started. We started out and built 2 houses, and then as we could get somebody to loan us some money, we'd build another one. We got up to 7 houses, which was about as big a poultry farm as there was in the country then. Today, we'd raise 120,000 chickens out here at a time now, but that's nothing now. Some of these farms, could be 300,000 or 400,000. Sure. But at the time we come along, we was pretty big operating for what we were doing.
And how many total acres do you have out here now?
There's about 250 acres here left.
So what else do you have besides poultry out here?
We got cattle. We got beef cows.
How many head do you run?
We're running about 65 head of brood cows. So we sell probably about 40,000 pounds of beef a year, and about 3 million pounds of chicken come off this farm.
So have you enjoyed the transition of the farm into poultry? Do you think it's been a good industry for you?
It's been a great, all in North Georgia, whatever. Poultry business is just, you can see a lot of fields. You see how green the pastures are and all, where that chicken litter's been out there, But before, the farmer couldn't afford no chicken litter, So the chicken litter is just, the chickens and the cows go together good. You got the fertilizer right there, which is a big cost or whatever. And that's the best thing about the chickens and the cows going together. So
Right.
they just work great.
Very good, very good. So to run a farm like this, Jack, obviously it's not just you and your wife doing all the work out here. Who else do you have helping you out around?
Jill's always the number one around here. She's here. Anytime we need her, she's always here. But anyway, we got David Mahan, boy, it's farm manager here. It's been with us for about 15 or 16 years, and we couldn't do without him around here. My daughters, we don't get much work out of them no more. Donna and Paula, whatever, they were the best growing up, but they went off to college. And I tell them they got that college disease. And what I call the college disease is they get too lazy to work. They find out they don't have to.
Tell us about who was maybe your greatest influence to keep in the farm business, or who influenced you the most?
I really don't know. My dad was in the farm, like I say, all his life or whatever. And he got to where he got old enough to get his Social Security. He said he was done. So at 62,
Yeah.
he quit the farming business. But anyway, he was always there telling you how, and always had good advice of what you needed. Knew every tree in the country and what needs fertilizer and when and what. But anyway, he was always good advice being there.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in agriculture in Bartow County? You know, going from dairy, like how many dairy operations there were to now, and you know how the cotton industry has changed, and now a lot of folks are going into cattle and poultry. What are some of the bigger changes that you've seen folks get into here?
Mostly or whatever going out. There's just no farms, you know, instead of growing cotton or whatever here, which are growing a lot more cotton now than we used to even for a time, but cotton almost went plumb out. But now all we're building or growing is houses in this county as far as that's mostly because Bartow County is just, it's getting too expensive to farm.
Yeah.
And this is a part that I worry about or whatever for the future. I just don't know how nobody's going to, we bought this farm for $500 an acre from my dad, and he put it on the open market. That's where we got it. One fella come in the office one time and he told me that he didn't have no farm. His dad didn't have no farm for him to inherit. And I know how we scratched this one out. You know, I didn't either, but my dad didn't think none of us kids probably had smart enough to pay for it at that time because it was hard.
Yeah.
And anyway, he wanted his money, and I don't blame him. Him and the mother had that to live on the rest of their life, you know, while they were here. So I didn't blame Daddy for the way it come along, but he told me the way it started out. He sold it the first time, and I was here, at my house here. And then 3 years later, they just paid him a prepaid interest on the thing. That's what they done to all the farmers, just paid them a prepaid interest. So they gave it, 3 years, they gave it back to him. Well, he was fixing to sell it again for $500 an acre. And I told him, let me see what I could do. Well, I'm going to still be in the country and not have nothing. Let me see what I could do. He said, well, one boy, and this guy, I could call his name, we'd all get a laugh out of him. I was kind of mad with him for trying to buy the farm at that time. And anyway, but Dad said to hurry up before he backs out. And so I'll tell you, the boy's name was Charles Croft. We turned out to be great friends through the years, but he was about to buy the farm there before I got it. So there was 118 acres across the road, and there wasn't but 60 acres left on this side at that time. Dad said, well, hurry up before he backs out. So within 3 days, I sold the 118 acres and made $100 an acre on it, and I used that for a down payment on my side, and that's how we got to stay on the farm.
Yeah, very good. Wow. What are some of the challenges you see in farming for the next 20, 30 years, maybe?
Finance, it's such a gamble to farm. I couldn't farm like these guys are out here now, trying to row crop, put their whole life into 1 year's crop. A drought come along, or prices could be, but droughts, weather's what you have to worry about more, it seems to me like. But I just see the financial side. I just don't see, I couldn't do it to start over if I was young or whatever, you know, even be hard.
It's expensive to get into, isn't it?
It is. I don't see how a young person's got a prayer of getting into the farming business no more.
What do you consider to be crucial to your success as far as your work ethic and being successful in farming?
Hard work, and just staying at it day after day, and having a good wife and some kids. I worked my kids, as they say, I'd be in jail now. If working them like we did then and all, if they had to go over. But the kids tell me how hard, it's a good life we have around here. But we all worked hard through those early years trying to make this place go. And we'd get the chance to add a little, or build another chicken house, or buy a little piece of land to add with it. And everything we've ever done, my wife, she said, we can't do it. We can't. And put it on paper. It was that hard.
Yeah. Tell us about how many children and grandchildren do you have?
We got two daughters, 6 grandchildren, 4 girls, 2 boys.
Okay. Do any of them have an interest in keeping the farm operation going?
I'm afraid not. I don't know. We'll have to wait that one out.
Okay.
We got the little 8-year-old grandson. It's our life around here now, and he's really interested in everything. But nobody, these young people are not going to commit to work 7 days a week and be tied up day and night with these things. You know, these alarms go off in these chicken houses all night until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You hate to get up, you know, when you hear that alarm go off.
Yeah. So, let's see. Tell us maybe one of your favorite memories of growing up on the farm as a kid.
I don't know. I always had an old horse. I enjoyed my horse always, or whatever. And in our later years, or whatever, I got the feeling with racing go-karts. My dad and mother didn't know it. I had one. I'd leave it hid out at Pine Log at some of my friend's house. But anyway, one day we was fixing to turn them loose. We was having a race at Calhoun on a dirt track. And we were just fixing to turn them up. They was warming them up. And I looked over there, and there was my mother and dad sitting over there on the side. And they had hay bales around the outside, and I went plumb through the end of it. Just got my attention. So they didn't decide to slip around and come back to the more surprise race dress. But anyway, but other than that, it's just a good life. That's all I know. I don't remember any bad growing up. I just remember enjoying it all. Like I said, people think we had it hard, and the teachers all felt sorry for me because we had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go to sleep in the middle of the evening. And anyway, it was just a great life. I never thought about it being bad at all.
So who are you more like, your mom or your dad? Or
my dad always said I was more like my mother.
Your mother? Okay. Okay. And what personality traits did you get from her?
My mother's family was just always really sweet and kind of like her side of it. And my dad's side was kind of hellraiser. They had their way or no way, kind of some of that, my dad's side. But anyway, they were both great or whatever. But my dad always said I took more after my mother's side of the family, which I always thought a compliment.
Well, if you had to do it all over again, would you change anything?
At least I knew I could do it the same way.
Yeah, that's a good life.
It was. We just had everything about our life's been great. The best years, we've had some really great years or whatever, from getting elected at the tax office was all my years at the Dan River at the carpet mill. I got in the carpet mill when it was really a growing industry. We changed a new way of making thread at that time, and it caught on all over the country. Dan River was the first one that put it in here, and everybody I'd work with would get offered plant manager jobs to go somewhere else. And I got offered, but I said any 8 or 10 hours in the mill wouldn't make me any difference. But the moving part, move your family and all. So as they would move out, I got to go up at the mill. So then when the job come open at the tax office, I always believed that the job at Dan River is how it got me elected at tax commissioner. A lot of people worked through all those years. Well, I worked a lot of people through the years. But anyway, our good years really was from getting on at the tax office, and Jewel kept this farm running all the time. She would go out in the morning, and she wouldn't even come back in to eat or nothing until night would come along. I'd come along want to start a second shift, and she said, and she done had it. She didn't. I said, I wish the days were longer. And she said she done had all the daylight she wanted. But anyway, that was a good year. So then from there we went on, and back at the Gold Kiss, we were raising chickens for Gold Kiss, and it was just a member run, one boat, one member, one boat, no money on the thing like stock. So anyway, I tried to run for that. Well, anyway, I got elected on that in 1990. And I got to stay 9 years with Gold Kiss. They was the biggest poultry company in the world at that time. It was a great job. You got to travel, see different things in the world. But it was just a great job.
So the poultry industry has really changed. It sounds like you started out family owned and operated, and then you had to really go through these corporate to be integrated with them more so. Have you seen that change as positive for the poultry industry or challenging? Or
it hadn't changed. Really, about 4 poultry integrators, Pilgrim's Pride, Tyson, I don't know, can't even think. Sanderson Farm, but anyway, it's about 4 big ones. They really control about 90-something% of the poultry industry or whatever. Yeah. You work for them. They're their chickens, their feed. They just pay us for raising them and putting them in a house and looking after them for them. But I don't see any changes from the time my uncle, back in the beginning of the year, he used to have a few just when they had 2,000 chickens in a house.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
My uncle used to he would furnish them feed and the chickens and all or whatever like that. But the system is still works. It's just the big boys run it completely. They completely control the poultry business all over the world.
Okay. Do you see that creating any challenges going forward? Because I know I see a lot of challenges with like antibiotic use in the industry, and how does that affect you as a grower?
We don't have anything to do with it. They all advertise, and it's a big joke to me about how they advertise there's no hormone in the chicken. Right. Well, there's no hormone in it. And the law says it can't even be, but some of the companies they're always trying to give all kind of advertising, especially to make you look at their chicken deal, but there's no hormones in the chicken. The law says it can't even be.
Marketing, yeah. Is that, do you feel like that's a challenge for the industry to be able to, convince consumers that you're doing things the right way? So.
I hope so. It's about all we just on our end. We don't get involved much for that end, but we used to have to run the medicators that we'd do the medicating, and then they used to give the egg a shot at the egg. Mm-hmm. They'd put a needle and give the egg a shot. Actually, you know more than probably than I do on that, but they would give them that to vaccinate the chickens. Mm-hmm. But now the way I understand, there's none of that. Right. That's going on, and one of these days it may come back. We may have some disease that comes along that they have to, where they're not using antibiotics now.
Yeah. Let's see. What's the best advice you were ever given, or that you would maybe pass along to young people?
Same advice I give my kids every day and grandkids. If you go to get a job, you don't give 100%, you give 110. If somebody else gives 100, you always give 110. I say it won't show up, might not show up today, tomorrow, but you do it every day and it'll show up. Yeah. But just always put in for a day's pay, put in more than a day's work.
Yeah. What do you think Bartow County is going to look like in another 50 years as far as agriculture? And
I just see I was telling my dad always said they ought not to let them build no house nowhere except on a hill. But what's going to happen? Yeah. There's just not going to be any farmland left in the county. It's just like all the other metro counties. We're just going to be. Yeah. But we're lucky in Bartow County. We've really got a lot of industry. A lot of the others, Paulden and Cherokee, don't have it. We're just getting really loaded with good industry, which is going to be Bartow County's. And we've been so lucky all the years for the tax base having Georgia Power there. Yeah. Back in my early years at the tax office, we didn't collect but $3 million taxes in the county, and Georgia Power paid half of that back at that time.
That's right. Yeah.
So we were really lucky having Georgia Power here all the old days.
Yeah. Well, what do you hope to be remembered for, Jack?
I don't know. Just halfway decent fella is all I know. Just trying to do what you think's right.
Well, I can vouch for that. I think you're a decent fella too. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with us that we haven't talked about?
I don't really know of anything. I just going to just how big this chicken business is. As far as like right here, we grow about 3 million pounds of chicken a year right here. No, I'm sorry, 18 million. If I got my figures right now, we're about 3 million pounds a batch, and we get about 6 batches. We raise about 18 million pounds of chicken. In the 43 years we've been raising chickens, I figured up we sold over 100 million pounds of chicken over this place. Wow. And over 2 million pounds of beef or whatever here come off this farm.
Do you still like to eat chicken?
Yes, sir, I do. That's my. I love my chicken.
That's good. That's good.
I always say this, it's a poor bird. My buddies always kid me about eating chicken all the time. Yeah. But I tell them it's a poor bird that won't feather his own nest.
Well, I always heard that 100 years ago, poultry wasn't even on the menu. Folks didn't really eat a lot of chicken. So that'd probably be your grandfather, if you remember him talking about, back then nobody ate chicken, right?
Well,
there wasn't an industry for that, really. But
yeah. We didn't have it like we do today, but that was always a treat. But I can remember all my life when was growing up, ringing old chicken's neck, to have a chicken dinner or whatever.
Yeah. But not as much as we eat today, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere. A lot of restaurants came out of that here in Georgia because of the poultry industry, and Georgia's still the #1 poultry state in the nation. So, yeah. Yeah.
And you can grow chickens anywhere in Georgia. That's a
Yeah.
good part. You know, we used to think, you know what I mean, South Georgia was too hot, but now then with all the ventilation system they've got,
Yeah.
you can grow chickens anywhere in Georgia now.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how efficient the poultry industry is as far as feed conversion and compared to other industries especially.
The poultry industry, nothing can touch the poultry industry as far as meat or whatever. We grow and we put a pound of chicken on right now. It's about 1.65 pounds of feed produces 1 pound of poultry meat. Nothing else can compare with that. I don't know, a cow used to be 6 or 7 pounds, a hog about 4, I think, or whatever. I'm not sure about the hogs or whatever. But nothing can produce meat, convert it like a chicken can. You can watch the chickens almost grow. When we first started raising chickens, we'd keep the chickens 8 weeks, and they'd weigh about 3.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And now they sell them anywhere from 39 to 41 days, and they'll weigh 4.5 to 5 pounds on a 1.65 feed conversion, which it used to be 2 pounds back when we started.
That's just better genetics. So
Yeah,
a lot of people
it is.
don't realize that we're not genetically engineering those chickens. That's just natural breeding, right?
Yeah, and research, they just keep everything, you know, they learn how to do everything better and better all the time as far as feeders that don't waste to feed, everything, you know, it's just good.
It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Any other advances in the poultry industry that have really changed how you operate?
The computer industry really changed. I used to, when they first started talking about putting computers in the chicken house and closing them up.
Yeah.
That scared me to death.
Yeah.
I just couldn't see, you know, I could just see us smothering houses of chickens or whatever. I just couldn't, it took me a long time to see how it could prove to be work, but I was just scared to death all the time when they started talking about closing, because we always had the curtains. When it got hot, we'd go out there, and my wife and I'd go out every night. We'd listen to the weather, and we'd go out and set our ventilation for the night. And sometimes you'd go to bed and you'd turn off a little colder, a little hotter, and you'd still get up and go tighten them up or give them more air. But I just was scared to death about thinking about closing them up in there. But the computer business now, they've got all the backups. If one thing don't work, they got another backup. It starts working, and it's just unreal how it works today compared to what it used to be. And the waters, we used to have to fill up the old jugs every day and feed these trays individually, feed trays. But now then, everything's automatic. We fill them up and start them on the babies one time, and from there on out, everything's automatic. So no more feeding. Drink out of a little nipple water. They used to have to sweep a trough out every day. It had an old 8-foot watering trough we'd have to sweep out and clean out, but now we just got a little nipple water that you don't have to do anything.
Wow. And there's more and more technology, it seems like, every year.
It's unreal, unreal.
Yeah. Is the cost, are you able to keep up with the costs and the changes in technology? Is that getting harder? Or?
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder. That's what and I don't know whether it's true or not, but the poultry companies or whatever, really right now, they don't give many raises out. I think it's been years. I don't keep up with it as much as some of these younger guys, but it's been years, they said, since we've even had a raise in the poultry business, and the expenses just keeps going up, especially utilities. I saw where the public service had just allowed the Georgia Power or the power companies, all utilities power. But anyway, to go up this year, which is really going to be a big increase as far as that's that. But the gas out here, if you're lucky enough to get natural gas, you got a good winter with the chicken business. But if you're having butane, but the natural gas is getting a lot cheaper for the one that's lucky enough to use it.
So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on animal welfare. You hear a lot in the news now about some states like California wanting to regulate how big your cage sizes can be and that sort of thing. I
get aggravated with all of that. I just don't think it, they need to be trying to tell you what to do and how many chickens to raise in the house or what. But right now we used to have 20,000 capacity in each house, that they've come along here and from equal rights or whatever, what you asked about, animal rights. But anyway, now then we raise 18,500 in a house, which really cuts back on the profit side, you know what I mean, of that. But I don't think it makes a bit of difference to that chicken, how much we got in there. But no, I think I wish they'd let it all alone, and animal rights business look after their business and let the farmers look after theirs.
Yes. So you feel like you do a good job as far as keeping those animals in good condition.
We do a
and
great
healthy.
job. I think the old chicken, just cows as happy as they can be, you know, I think.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't be able to stay in business if you weren't keeping those animals healthy at the end of the day, right? That's what it's all about. So, yeah. Very good. Anything else you'd like to share with us?
I don't know of anything really.
Okay.
We got the old farm you talk about here, and my daughter, we were smart enough, my dad, my granddad, and all of us built our house right on the side of the road. But my girls, both of them built a house on the farm.
Oh, yeah.
They built it right in the middle of the farm, and I tell them trying to figure out, I know we're getting towards our end of the thing,
Yeah.
and I try to figure out what to do with it. And they said, Daddy, you divide it. But they built their house right in the middle of it. So I about decided, I think we're just going to leave it, let them figure it out or whatever it's over. But if they built their house somewhere where you might could divide it, but both of them built their house right in the middle of the farm.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have family close to you on the farm, I'm sure.
We've had a great life, just having our kids and grandkids all right here with us all the time. So
Yeah.
a lot of people, we just think how lucky we are that we've had them all their life right here with us. And like I say, the grandboy gets off the school bus right here with us every day, and we just get to enjoy them all the way.
So I want to thank you, Jack Nalley, for taking the time to share this history and insight into Bartow County's agriculture. And on behalf of the Etowah Valley Historical Society, we appreciate you providing this interview today. So
Thank you, Paul.
thank you so much. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, and
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
girls and Etowah History, for everybody for doing what you're doing. We enjoyed it. Thank you.